Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're getting into some really personal stuff.
We are.
Exploring those deep emotional disconnects in relationships and, what happens when the basic agreements, the core covenants, start to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
We're using a single source today, a very raw, very vulnerable conversation with a listener about his own marriage.
That's right. And it's important to remember, while this is one person's experience, it really shines a light on those often hidden dynamics of intimacy, neglect, commitment, stuff that happens in many marriages.
Yeah, it feels universal, even though it's specific.
Exactly. We're looking through his lens.
So our mission for this deep dive, we want to unpack the layers of this really challenging story.
Identify those signs, those key signs of emotional neglect.
Right. And maybe arrive at a broader definition of infidelity. Something, beyond just the physical side.
That's surprising sometimes.
We're hoping for those aha moments. The ones that help you reframe how you think about what makes a partnership truly healthy and fulfilling.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's talk about Joe. He's the listener who called in. He was really looking for clarity, struggling with his marriage.
You could hear the pain in his voice.
Absolutely. Asking this heavy question, is my wife emotionally unfaithful, abusive, or am I just what she says I am, too sensitive and needy?
That's such a common dismissal, isn't it? You're too sensitive.
It really is.
And Joe's vulnerability, it was just palpable. He's clearly someone who's thought about this a lot, listened to, hours of shows like ours trying to understand.
Right.
And now he's finally saying it out loud, that fear. I'm pouring myself out to her and she just keeps shutting me down.
Oof. That's rough.
It's a really painful place to be, that one-sided dynamic.
So a little background on them. Joe met his wife through her cousin. She's a teacher.
And he mentioned she loved kids, really wanted them.
Yeah. And they married and had kids very quickly. It sounds like that was really important to her, having that family set up.
Things move fast.
But then, almost immediately after the kids arrived, he says their sex life just fell apart.
Right after the children. That's a common timing, unfortunately.
He tried talking about it, communicating his need for intimacy, for connection.
And her response?
Excuses. Always excuses. Too tired, no time for it, stuff like that.
The classic avoidance patterns. They set in quickly.
And they did try counseling.
Which is often a good sign, right? An attempt.
Yeah, you'd think so. But when that crucial issue, the lack of sexual intimacy, was finally put on the table.
What happened?
She just announced, I don't want to continue anymore.
Wow. Just like that.
Yep. Shut down the therapy. Right there.
That action itself, it says so much about her willingness or lack thereof to actually deal with the core problems, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then there's this other piece, her backstory. She told Joe about a previous marriage, said her ex-husband was physically abusive, but described it as a one-time occurrence.
Okay. That's significant history.
Right. And Joe says he was really sympathetic at first, of course. But over the years, well, she never told anyone else.
No one. Not family, not friends.
Nope. So he started to feel confused, started to doubt. Was that the whole story? It left him wondering.
That kind of secrecy can definitely erode trust over time. Creates uncertainty.
Beyond the intimacy issues, though, he talks about her communication style, calls it very dismissive.
Consistently invalidating his feelings.
Exactly. Which, that's just incredibly frustrating. Painful, even, in a partnership.
It really is. And what's striking is how hard Joe tried. He didn't just try one thing.
No, he really went for it.
Direct talks, sitting her down, writing letters, heartfelt letters, even poems.
Trying every avenue.
In her response to all that vulnerability, that effort.
She called it ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And straight up told him he was needy and too sensitive.
That's not just dismissive. That is classic emotional invalidation. It's designed, consciously or not, to make him doubt himself, his own reality, his needs.
It really is. And he shared this one example. It sounds small, but it speaks volumes, I think. He just asked her, could you let me know when friends or family are coming over? Just a heads up.
Seems like a reasonable request in a shared home.
Right. Her reply, I don't need to tell you that.
Ouch. That shows a fundamental lack of regard, doesn't it? For him as a partner, for his feelings, his place in their life together.
Exactly. It's cutting.
And this brings us to a really crucial point about betrayal. We often think of emotional infidelity as, confiding intimate stuff with someone outside the marriage, sharing secrets elsewhere.
Right, that's the usual definition.
But Joe's story makes us look at something else, maybe an equally damaging form of betrayal. The consistent withholding of emotional intimacy within the marriage.
Withholding as betrayal. That's interesting.
Yeah. It can be just as corrosive, that covenant we talked about. It creates this huge emotional distance right where connection should be. It's like an internal abandonment.
Wow. So the expert listening to Joe's call, their assessment was pretty direct.
It had to be, I think. What did they say?
Basically.
Yeah.
You're dealing with somebody who has a profound disregard for your well-being.
Straightforward. Brutal, maybe, but honest.
Yeah. But also so validating for Joe. The expert followed up with, "You're not crazy."
That's huge. Hearing that when you've been made to feel like you are?
Absolutely. It reframes it. This isn't about him being too sensitive. It's about the reality he's facing. A partner who is just actively disengaged. And look at Joe's efforts. He's doing everything imaginable to connect, trying all these approaches, reading, listening to shows like this one, trying to learn.
Pulling himself out, like he said.
And still facing rejection. Constant, crushing rejection. The message seems pretty clear, unfortunately.
Yeah, the expert said it. The problem is not you, man.
That's got to be both painful and maybe a relief to hear. But it points towards this covert abandonment you mentioned, feeling utterly alone inside the marriage.
A very isolating experience. And it naturally brings up the question of trauma, right? Her past trauma.
Yeah, that previous abusive relationship she mentioned.
And trauma is, look, it's very, very real. It absolutely can cascade through a person's entire life, affect everything, even generations. We know that.
Of course.
But, and this is a critical distinction, while we don't choose the trauma that happens to us,
right,
we do choose what comes next. We choose how we respond, whether we seek help, whether we do the work. Trauma explains, perhaps, but it doesn't excuse ongoing harmful behavior or refusal to engage.
That's a really important point. And based on Joe's account, it really does sound like his wife has, well, no interest at all in doing that work.
The work to understand yourself, maybe? Understand why her body pulls away when the man I love leans in, as the expert put it?
Exactly. Or even work on shared values. He gave another example. Church. He feels it's important for them, for their sons. But she makes excuses not to go with them.
So another area of disengagement. It's a pattern across different parts of their life together, not just intimacy.
Seems like it. It suggests a chosen detachment.
Which leads to this really stark anecdote. The car accident.
Yeah, this one is powerful. And recent for Joe. He totaled his truck.
Serious accident.
Yeah, he was shaken up, had a whiplash. A scary experience.
And her reaction.
When he called her, her first question was, "Do I need to come?"
No, I need to come. Not, "Are you okay?" or "I'm on my way."
Right. And later, he's home, still shaken, needing comfort, He asks for some closeness, maybe just a shoulder rub.
The very human need after trauma.
Her response, her exact words were, "I'm not doing that because I might make your condition worse."
Wow. That's cold. And illogical, really.
It was the breaking point for Joe. That moment just laid bare the complete absence of care, of basic human comfort from his partner.
I can see why. It just crystallizes everything he'd been feeling, I imagine.
It really does. And the expert on the show then shared a personal story, a contrast.
Oh.
About his own car accident and how his wife reacted immediately, tearfully, showed up right away.
Just needing to see him.
Exactly. Her reason was simply, "I just need to see you." Not obligation, but genuine care and connection.
That comparison, it really highlights what Joe is missing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It reinforces that what Joe wants, that connection, that care, especially in a crisis. It's not a fantasy. He's not a needy, whiny guy. His needs are normal, healthy even.
It shows what a supportive partnership actually looks like in those moments.
Which brings us back to that idea of broadening the definition of infidelity.
Right. Moving beyond just the physical acts.
Yeah. The expert described it as withholding, as denial.
Prioritizing my life over your life. A disregard for the actual covenant, the promises made.
It's a much wider lens, isn't it? It sees that act of disengagement, that consistent withholding, is its own kind of violation of the marriage.
Absolutely. Because what is that covenant really about?
Well, the ideal is you before me, right? Being in service to one another.
Building something new together, a shared life based on mutual care and respect.
So, thinking beyond Joe's specific situation, someone could be technically faithful physically.
Oh, absolutely.
But still be a terrible marriage partner, as the expert put it.
Definitely. Through selfishness, constant criticism, maybe manipulation, even being sort of quasi-abusive emotionally without ever crossing that physical line.
So how does that violate the covenant?
Well, think about it. If one partner consistently puts their own desires way ahead of the family's needs or the relationship's health.
Or just ignores the promises they made.
Exactly. Or maybe they're constantly critical, tearing the other person down. Or emotionally unavailable, creating that void of care we talked about. These things erode the foundation. They leave the other person feeling unseen, unvalued, abandoned, really, even while still in the same house.
That makes sense. It's a betrayal of the spirit of the partnership.
Precisely. Which leads to the advice given to Joe, which was pretty tough.
Yeah. Stop playing the what-if game.
Right. Stop thinking, if I just try this one more thing, or if I phrase it differently, stop trying to find the magic key.
Because
he needs to shift. Shift to accepting the reality as hard as it is.
the reality that this is who she is.
And this is who she is choosing to be. Right now, at least. Regarding spirituality, sex, connection, all of it.
That acceptance.
Yeah.
That sounds like the really painful but necessary first step.
It is, because only from that place of acceptance can he really decide what to do next.
And those next steps sound daunting.
They are. Settling into this reality, maybe getting counseling for himself to explore what a life without her might look like, or how to live with this reality differently.
Or confronting her directly.
Yeah.
With clear boundaries saying, this is what I need and this isn't working.
Yes. Setting those non-negotiables for what a healthy partnership means to him. It's choosing between incredibly difficult paths. But staying stuck, that's often not sustainable.
No, it sounds like inaction is just slow poison.
Exactly. And that's why the expert strongly recommended Joe get some outside perspective.
Talk to someone objective.
Yes, a professional counselor, definitely. Or maybe a trusted minister, someone in his community he respects, or even a close family member, like his dad was mentioned.
Why is that outside voice so important?
To find peace. Whatever decision he makes, he needs to find some peace with it. Because living in that gray space, that constant indecision and false hope, the expert said it can kill you.
That constant turmoil.
Yeah. Objective counsel can help bring clarity, validate his feelings, and support him in making a choice he can live with.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
wow, we've really unpacked some profound stuff from Joe's story.
We have the reality of emotional neglect. How painful that is.
And the importance, the vital importance of actually acknowledging what's truly happening in a relationship, not what you wish was happening.
And that bigger picture of marital commitment, that covenant, going way beyond just physical fidelity.
These aren't just lessons for Joe, are they? They feel universal.
They really do. And look, it's an incredibly sad situation for Joe, but it's also, as the expert noted, not an uncommon story.
Sadly, no.
We do see this pattern, especially sometimes after kids arrive. One spouse might just decide they're done with the partnership as it was, maybe feeling they lost themselves, wanting their life back.
Often, without really communicating that clearly or considering the impact.
Right, at the painful expense of their partner and the promises they made together.
So I hope if you're listening, you take away one key message from this deep dive. We keep coming back to it.
That choice point.
Yeah. We can't choose the trauma that happens to us or maybe the difficult patterns our partner brings into the relationship, but we absolutely choose what comes next.
We choose our response.
And recognizing when a partner is consistently choosing to leave you out in the cold, as the expert put it.
Actively disengaging.
Failing to uphold that basic covenant of mutual care and service. Recognizing that is the first step. Painful, yes, but crucial.
It's the first step toward deciding, okay, what do I do next? It's not about blame, necessarily, but about recognizing where the responsibility lies now for your own well-being and the future.
Right. Taking responsibility for your own path forward.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with, something to mull over. In a relationship that's supposed to be built on this sacred covenant, this deep mutual bond, what's the real consequence when that bond is broken? Not always by one big dramatic betrayal, but by that steady, consistent, chosen absence of care, of connection, of putting the other person first.
And what's the true cost, then, for the person who gave their all, who tried everything?
Only to receive that chosen absence in return. What does that cost a person over time?